This AI reconstruction is based on historical records, ancient drawings, and preserved maps, carefully reimagined to bring lost cities back to life with modern technology. As for me, I have always been here, watching, witnessing, because I am Professor Chronos, a silent observer of time and all that has unfolded within it. Students, look at this light. It's beautiful, isn't it? The golden hour. But in history, the golden hour is often the most dangerous time of all, because it means the sun is setting. Rome, 161 AD. The city is at its absolute zenith. 1 million people live within its walls, governed by an administration so efficient it manages 70 million souls across 3 continents. The Pax Romana, the 200-year golden age, has reached its peak. But the marble is starting to feel cold. The air is changing. And the man who just inherited the greatest empire on earth is the last person who ever wanted to rule it. Meet Marcus Aurelius. He wasn't a conqueror. He wasn't a tyrant. He was a philosopher, a student of Stoicism who preferred the quiet of his books to the noise of the Palatine Hill. When he took power alongside his co-emperor Lucius Verus, he inherited a city of perfect concrete domes and flowing water. But he also inherited a world that was about to fracture in ways no philosophy could fix. In 165 AD, the soldiers returning from the Parthian War brought back a silent killer. The Antonine Plague, likely smallpox, swept through the empire like a wildfire. Modern estimates suggest it killed between 5 and 10 million people, nearly 10% of the entire imperial population. In Rome itself, 2,000 people died every single day. Imagine the silence in the streets, students. The baths were empty. The markets were closed. Funeral pyres burned day and night, their thick, greasy smoke choking the air of the megacity. The Golden Age wasn't being conquered. It was being buried in mass graves. Before we follow the legions north, look at these doors. In the Roman mind, the Temple of Janus was the empire's barometer. Its doors stood closed only in times of total peace, a rare, sacred silence. For much of the Golden Age, they remained shut. But as the Germanic tribes crossed the Danube in 166 AD, those doors were metaphorically flung wide. The doors of Janus were open. The age of security was over. The boundary between order and violence had been breached, and every Roman felt the chill. The spirits of war were loose in the world, and the kingdom of gold was about to meet the kingdom of iron. Back in the Forum, the Temple of Janus had become a place of dread. For centuries, those doors were the heartbeat of Roman security. Closed, they promised the gods protection. Open, they signaled that the gods had gone to war. Now they stood agape like a wound that wouldn't heal. The sacred silence of the Pax Romana had been replaced by the rhythmic thud of marching boots and the frantic prayers of a plague-stricken capital. As the plague hollowed out the heart of the empire, the borders began to break. In 166 AD, the Marcomannic Wars began. Germanic tribes crossed the Danube and invaded Italy, the first foreign incursion since the Gauls had burned Rome in 390 BC, centuries before. Marcus Aurelius was forced to leave the comfort of the capital for the brutal reality of the frontier. He had to raise armies from gladiators, slaves, and even bandits, desperate to replace the legions lost to the plague. The philosopher king was now a soldier emperor, living in a tent in the mud, fighting to hold back the tide. Look at his hands, students. These are the hands that held the world together, yet they couldn't stop the shivering. By 172 AD, the philosopher king was a ghost inhabiting a breastplate. He spent his nights in a leather tent, the smell of damp wool and wood smoke thick in the air, writing his meditations by the flickering light of a single oil lamp. Outside, the kingdom of iron was screaming. The Germanic Quadi and Marcomanni weren't just raiding, they were a migration of desperation, driven by the same unseen pressures that were beginning to crack the Roman shell. Then, in 172 AD, on the parched plains of the frontier, the empire faced a moment of pure mysticism. A Roman legion, surrounded and dying of thirst, was saved by a sudden, violent thunderstorm. As the Romans drank the falling rain, lightning struck the enemy, scattering them in terror. This rain miracle became a pivotal moment of spiritual conflict. Christians claimed their prayers had saved the army. Pagans insisted a magician or Jupiter himself had intervened. The event was so significant that Marcus had it carved into his own triumphal column in Rome, where it remains today. A stone witness to a miracle that saved an empire, but couldn't save its soul. The 12th Legion, the Fulminata, was dying, not by the sword, but by the sun. Surrounded and trapped in a cauldron of dust, the soldiers collapsed beneath a sky that seemed to have abandoned them. This is where history and myth collide. Whether it was the Egyptian Arnufis chanting in ancient tongues, or the desperate prayers of Christians hidden among the ranks, something broke the heavens. It wasn't just rain, it was a divine artillery strike. To the Romans, it was Jupiter Tonans, Jupiter the Thunderer, reclaiming his empire. A jagged bolt from the sky tore into the enemy line, and panic spread through the attackers as if the god himself had entered the battle. But students, the rain wasn't the only miracle on that battlefield. Ancient accounts of the 172 campaign describe a flash of lightning so precise it struck and destroyed an enemy siege engine just as it reached the Roman lines. This sparked a battle of the miracles that lasted for centuries. The Christians claimed their prayers saved the army, but the imperial accounts and the carvings on Marcus's own column tell a different story. They point to Jupiter, or even to an Egyptian magician named Arnufis, who was traveling with the emperor, invoking ancient gods to strike from the sky. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher, watched it all. To him, it may have been weather, but to his men, it was a divine intervention. In the mud of the frontier, the gods were still fighting for Rome. And yet, Marcus understood something deeper. The miracle had saved the army, but it could not restore the age that had produced it. The rain had broken the heat, but not the pattern. The empire could still win battles. It could no longer command the century. On that frozen frontier, Marcus Aurelius wrote for himself, not for history. You have power over your mind, he reminded himself, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He was a man watching the eternal city begin to rust, yet he remained anchored by his philosophy. The impediment to action advances action, he wrote. What stands in the way becomes the way. He was the last of the 5 good emperors, and he knew the end was coming. In 180 AD, Marcus Aurelius died, possibly a victim of the very plague he had fought for 15 years. His final words to his grieving staff were a stoic farewell.
Go to the rising sun. I am already sinking.
With his death, the Pax Romana died as well. His son, Commodus, succeeded him, and the stability of 2 centuries collapsed into chaos. The historian Cassius Dio wrote that Rome had passed from a kingdom of gold to one of rust and iron. The Western Empire fell in 476 AD, but the city of Rome refused to vanish. Even as its population shrank to a mere 30,000 souls, the monuments of the Golden Age endured. The Pantheon survived because it became a church. The Colosseum survived because its skeleton was too massive to destroy. The aqueducts, though broken, remained as stone giants striding across the landscape. Rome was the first to answer the question, how do you make 1 million people live together? Their answers are the foundation of our world. Our stadiums are the geometry of the Colosseum. Our high-rises are the logic of the insulae. Our public water is the legacy of the aqueducts. Our very concept of a megacity is a Roman invention. Augustus found a city of bricks and left it marble. Marcus Aurelius inherited marble and left it to rust. But the marble endured. Rome didn't just build a city, it built the template for every modern metropolis. The Golden Age lasted 200 years, but the idea of Rome, the first true megacity, has lasted 2,000. Rome never truly died. It just became the world. But remember, students, every Golden Age has its sunset. Every megacity has its rust. And as Marcus Aurelius wrote, what stands in the way becomes the way. The question is, what is standing in our way now? And are we ready for the shadow to fall?